Healthcare has been a major component of the U.S. economy for many years now, but if anything, it's become even more important as the battle against COVID has been fought. Adam Boehler has had a career in and around the industry. He went from CEO at Landmark Health, the largest provider of home-based medical care in the country, to senior positions in the Trump administration, and has now founded Rubicon Founders, a healthcare development and investment firm, and we welcome him now back to Bloomberg. So, Adam, congratulations on your new position. Tell us exactly what you're doing.
So Rubicon Founders is really focused on expansive opportunities in healthcare. And I think there's never a more exciting time to invest in healthcare. You can see it in all the new public companies coming into the space. And so our view is generally what we do is we start companies that we think can be transformational to transform kind of a whole industry. My prior background, as you said before, government, I founded a company called Landmark Health, which became the largest provider of in-home medical care in the country. And so we look to start, and then we look to purchase very large assets in healthcare as well.
So give me a sense about valuation, because there's been a lot of money pumped into the system, both here and around the world, which tends to drive up prices, asset prices. Are there opportunities that are reasonably priced in the healthcare area right now? Because, I mean, goodness knows people are looking at healthcare a lot.
Yeah. There's definitely high value in the sector. It's one reason, by the way, why we start our own companies, because then you control valuation from that perspective. The other thing, though, is there are some very large legacy assets that I think are at reasonable prices. And so if you look at what's happening in the market, and this is really kind of a new thing, is on one side you have exciting startups, Landmark being one of them, but Oscar, Bright Health, Oak Street, others, One Medical, that are new in the public market. And then on the other side, you have really strong competitors in United Optum, Humana, Centene. And then in the middle, you have companies that have been around for a while that are getting pushed on both sides. And so I think there's a huge opportunity also to partner with those companies to say, how do we make a transition and accelerate you? And so those valuations, you can find a lot different from some of the high-flying public market companies.
One of the hot topics these days is SPACs, those special purpose acquisition companies, which I guess essentially says you don't have to go through an IPO to become public. Does that change the dynamic as you're thinking about starting companies?
I mean, I think SPACs will always be a good vehicle. I mean, I do worry, like many people, that the incentives are not aligned. When you can make money, when your investors don't make money, I think that's a problem. So I think going forward, you're going to see some of the SPAC economics change to more upside economics, which I think is a really good thing. And there'll be a vehicle, a public vehicle, just like our IPOs are. And it's something we'll look at, too, under the right circumstances when we make money the right way.
So I wonder, given your experience in the Trump administration, you were really part of the team fighting against COVID-19. We now have the initial requests coming out of the White House, that sort of mini budget that they sent up. And it includes a fair amount on healthcare, particularly for example, the CDC, and they will have something I think they call it ARPA 2 for research. Have you had a chance to look at that? Does that make sense to you, having been on the inside?
Yeah, I looked a little bit at it. I mean, I think that, look, the nice thing about the country now is I think April's going to be a big month for us from a vaccination perspective. And if you look at Israel, you see what's going to happen. I think I have to look more details on kind of how much funding we're talking about, CDC, et cetera. I will say where I agree is that we need to be prepared for another pandemic either way. And so we can't be caught with our pants down.
Well, so that's an interesting point. I talked to Larry Summers just yesterday for Wall Street Week, and he said he thinks we may have something like a pandemic every 10 years or so. Now, I don't know how we know that, but we should be prepared, I assume, that there's going to be another one?
I think, look, if you look at COVID, there's obviously a lot of negative things that happened around the world with COVID. Let's look at the things that transformed. So first of all, we removed a lot of regulation that I think we're realizing now was unnecessary. Good example is around telemedicine. Another good example is around testing, right? We released and allowed testing to go into pharmacies, and people don't always want to go other places. So now 25–30% of testing in the United States is through pharmacies. These are good things that should have happened anyway, and regulation was stopping them. Another good example is physician practice, state-by-state regulation, allowing people to practice across borders. I hope those things don't change. The other thing we need to learn is we need to learn to be prepared in all cases. So I think there's a number of things that we started focusing on when I was in the government. Number one, looking at whether our stockpiles are ready no matter what happens. The other thing we started spending time on, and I did this when I was CEO of DFC, is what core capabilities do we need to bring back to the United States? A good example is manufacture of generic pharmaceuticals. We don't manufacture them here. Most of them are manufactured in China and India. We need to have a core amount of facilities here so that we're ready no matter what.
Did we make progress on supply chains?
We've made some progress, but there's a lot more to be done.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, it's really interesting what you're up to. Please come back and report to us as you make more deals. That's Adam Boehler. He's founder of Rubicon Partners and former CEO of the United States International Development Finance Corporation.